If you're someone who sits at a desk all day, has nagging joint pain for long periods of time, or struggles with active mobility or flexibility, then this video is gonna be for you. What's good, y'all? Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Solo P Fitness, where we discuss how prioritizing your body's internal health and strength will benefit you now and for the rest of your life. If you caught my last video, we did a brief overview of cars and pails and rails, but today we're gonna dig really deep on cars, how to perform them. So first thing we're gonna cover in this video is what are cars and why they're important to perform daily. Second, we're gonna assess pain points and how to avoid them when you're moving through your cars. And then lastly, I'm going to bring in my business partner, Clyde Joseph of HCL Performance, and we're gonna briefly walk through the different levels of cars and how to use them. Yeah, so let's get into it. So what are cars and why should you be doing them every day? The point of cars is to maintain your current active range of motion in all of your major joints, starting from your neck all the way down to your ankles. This also helps to improve mobility, function, and overall health of your joints. Since we are not required to hunt and gather our food on a daily basis, our bodies have adapted to modern day society, which prioritizes convenience over practicality. Our bodies are meant to move in various planes of motion to get and do things that we want and need. But because of chairs and computers, we can basically acquire anything we want by the simple click of a button. What are cars? From the last video, if you watched it, CAR stands for controlled articular rotation. In its simplest form, cars are a maintenance tool designed for you to move your joints in their full active range of motion with little to no compensation from other areas of your body. Why are cars important? Cars are important because they help you maintain the health of your joints. As we age, we tend to move less and less, resulting in loss of range of motion. This can lead to pain, injury, and difficulty performing daily activities that were once second nature. Why do cars need to be done daily? By performing cars at least once a day, you can prevent any further deterioration and begin to take back control of your joint health. Just like any skill, if you don't use it, you lose it. Our bodies adapt to whatever stimulus that we put it through. If we sit for long periods of time, it'll get used to that. If we move very often, it will get used to that. Since we are designed to move, the more signals that we can send from our brain to our joints, the better that those signals will become. Eventually becoming a habit that your body wants and needs and fiends for. Cars allows us to move our joints how they're meant to be used, sending those essential signals from our brain to our joints. I love the example that Dr. Spina gives, who is the creator of the functional range systems, about how often you should be performing cars. He tells his clients that they should quit their jobs and just do them all day. On top of maintenance, cars should also be used as a self-assessment tool to discover where you may be limited in ranges of motion or have pain. This will take time and reps, but the more you do them, the better you will get at them. All right, so now we're gonna talk about discovering pain points and how to avoid them during your car's routine. So everyone's cars are going to look different based on your current range of motion, injuries, stress, and various other external factors. But that's the beauty of them, because everyone is able to perform them because they meet you where you're at. Because cars are solely for maintenance, we never want them to be done with pain under any circumstances. A pain point when you are moving through your car is any time that you come across an area of pain or there is unwarranted compensation from somewhere else in your body. So for example, like if I'm rotating my shoulder backwards and I start to come like this and rotate my torso to get there, and that means more than my shoulder is moving. That's what we would call unwarranted compensation. When and if you do come across a point of pain or compensation, you will want to just skip over that part and then continue the rest of your full range of motion car.
Some people experience pain once they go too far into extension, into this closed angle here. That's totally fine. We can actually stop here and go inward, come back into flexion. There's no pain here in this flexion. Eversion, and then we come back here in the extension and we're just working around that pain site, right? Making smaller circles.
Pain is typically the combination of tightness and weakness, especially in areas that may not have moved for a while, or if you're locked in certain positions for long periods of time. Think about someone sitting at a desk all day, or a massage therapist who may be hunched over for long periods of time. Then most likely they're going to be restricted in their full ranges of motion based on how their joints should be moving. A lot of people are limited in dorsiflexion. So you'll see like a pinching pain up here when they're trying to flex toward it. Just make this a bit smaller here. So let's start in dorsiflexion. Good, so see, small amount, perfect. Let's invert, come in, down to plantar flexion, a little bit, just like that. So you see it's much smaller, evert, and then all the way back up. Perfect, that's a perfect regress car. Very small, but still very effective. So now you can see Clyde and I giving you a few different cues that you will want to think about and use while you're performing your cars.
Hello, my name is Clyde Joseph Jr. I'm a coach here in Dallas, Texas. I'm partnered with Solo Patterson, and we coach under HCL Performance, which stands for Habits, Consistency, and Longevity. My specialty is internal strength training, which includes strengthening connective tissue, increasing joint mobility, and teaching biomechanics for human performance. All right, guys, so first movement we're gonna do are neck cars. So first of all, I'm gonna have Solo take a breath in, have him brace his core with low irradiation, low tension here. So I'm gonna have him bring his chin and his neck in the flexion here. So you're gonna tuck the chin in. We're gonna rotate the neck left to his end point. I'm gonna ask Solo to bring his left ear to shoulder, like a side bend, and then slowly go into extension. He's gonna reach back to his end ranges, and then we're gonna bring the right ear to right shoulder, another side bend, and then we're gonna come back, center line, here, then flexion. All right, so next car's routine is gonna be for the thoracic spine. So I'm gonna have Solo hug himself, right? So big hug, he's holding on to both lats here. So once again, breath in, we're gonna brace the core. We want very low tension here going through his body, right? So low irradiation. Once again, this is level 1 cars. So we're gonna go into flexion of the T-spine. And we're gonna keep on going here until he cannot move anymore without moving his hips. So this is Solo's end range right here, this T-spine as far as flexion goes. So I'm gonna have Solo rotate right through the T-spine. Once he gets this end point, we're gonna lateral bend to the right, and then slowly come into extension of his T-spine. He's reaching back as far as he can go. And then he's gonna transition to my side here. We're gonna lateral bend left in the T-spine. And then come back to our starting point, which is in flexion here. All right, so next up, we're gonna perform a shoulder car here with Solo. So I'm gonna have Solo perform a shoulder car on this left side here for this first rep. I'm gonna have him palm facing forward. He's gonna take a breath in. Once again, we're gonna brace the core, low tension here going throughout the body. His shoulder goes into adduction towards his chest, towards his midline as it goes into flexion. As Solo moves down this pathway, once we get here to his end point, it's gonna start to rotate. He's rotating through the shoulder as he reaches back, cuts through air, he keeps rotating. As he comes down, palm to the side, facing towards me. His shoulder right now is an internal rotation. So from here, once again, we can reset, breath in, brace the core, go into extension, stay in control. He starts to rotate. As he comes up, and then he resets back here within the starting position. All right, so guys, if you're performing your cross movement by yourself and you have no induced palpations within your movement, just make sure you slow the movement down as best as you can and you're working through your natural ranges of motion. Don't try to overexert yourself, stay along your pathway, therefore you'll make it safe and more effective. All right, next we have elbow cars. So I'm gonna have Solo start with his palm facing forward, arms fully extended. The key here is the elbow has to remain in the same position here. So I'm gonna ask Solo to go into flexion. Once again, his core is braced, low tension. He gets to his end point. Once we get here, we're gonna slowly rotate through the elbows as we reach back into extension. He slowly lowers, elbows stay put. Great rep, Solo. Next up, we have the wrist cars here. So I'm gonna have Solo get about 90 degrees here between his elbow and his forearm. So one major key here is pretend you have a cell phone sitting right here on your forearm, right? You're gonna brace his core, lower your radiation going throughout the body. So as he moves his wrist into extension, forearm stays square to the ceiling. Once again, there's a phone placed here. He reaches his end range. He comes back into inversion. He comes here into flexion. He comes back down towards me to his end point, eversion, and then he resets in extension.
All right, y'all, now that I've completed my upper body cars, we're gonna move to your lower body. But we're gonna first start with spinal segmentation, also known as cat-cow, for your spine. So, we did the T-spine for rotation, and so these are gonna be for flexion and extension of your spine. All right, so for cat-cow, I'm gonna start Clyde in flexion of his spine. So, perfect, so you see his head is down, big flexion of the back here. So ideally, you're gonna want to try and move each vertebra at one at a time. All right, so I'm gonna have you follow my fingers here, Clyde. I want you to start extending your lumbar. Good. One at a time. So he's trying to pull himself into extension. You're thinking about here, pulling your knees and arms together. Here. Good, keep breathing. The head comes all the way up, that's last. All right, and then we're gonna head right back into flexion. So I want you to drop your head first. Perfect, and then we start to go into flexion now, starting from the thoracic spine. Doing your best to move one vertebra at a time. Have good tension through his whole body right now. All the way back to that lumbar. And done. All right, so next we're gonna go through hip cars. So I have Clyde in a side lying position. I like this position just because you don't have to worry about balancing or, especially when you're first learning these, doing them standing. So this is a great position. I'm just gonna give him a yoga block for his head so he's comfortable. Okay, so to start these, same, you want a good amount of tension through the core. I'm gonna have him punch his bottom hand and pull with the top. So that's gonna help him get a little more tension through his whole body. Okay, so you wanna keep that the whole time. So you're gonna take a big breath, Clyde. You're going to let this top leg fall on the ground. And then you're gonna drag it all the way up to hip flexion. Once you can't go anymore, I want your knee to come back towards me, but keeping your shin in line. Good, all the way back. And then once you reach your end range, keep the knee here and internally rotate the hip. So the the foot's coming back towards me as you're reaching for a little bit of extension. And then I want you to rest and relax for a second. Good, if you need to reset, take another big breath. Then you're gonna come straight back lateral. Immediately start your external rotation of the hip. So you're pulling the foot right back forward, back into your full range of flexion, and relax. All right, so next we're gonna go through knee cars. All right, so for these, you'll probably wanna be seated. We're gonna use what's called a Kimura grip on your leg. That's just to help ensure that you're not rotating from your hip and rotating solely from your knee, which is not gonna have too much rotation, but it should have a little bit. For those of you who aren't familiar with how to set up your Kimura grip here, so you're gonna take the outside hand of the leg that you're working on, and you're gonna put it under your hamstring. That same hand is gonna grab the inside bicep, and then the right hand in this situation, or the hand that's away from the leg that you're working, is going to cover just on your quad. And that's how you set it up. So you see he's under, he's locked in with his bicep, he's covering his quad with the top hand, and that's helping to give him a little feedback so he's not rotating his hip and just his knee. So he's just working on rotating the knee out and then rotating the knee in. Okay, so let's start with external rotation out. And then, so you see he's rotating here, then you're gonna extend up as high as you can, doing your best to keep that rotation, and then let's rotate in and come all the way back down. Okay? And then from here, he's already in internal rotation, so you're gonna extend that knee straight up once more, doing your best to keep that internal rotation, and then rotate a little towards me, and then all the way back down. All right, so last but not least are gonna be ankle cars. Our setup is going to be the exact same as it is for the knee cars, but this time you wanna probably cover your knee a little bit with your grip, because you actually don't wanna rotate through your lower leg. We're just focusing on the ankle now. So let's start in dorsiflexion. So you're gonna pull those toes straight up towards the face. Then we're gonna move into inversion. Perfect, so we're rotating down. Let's go to plantar flexion. So you're gonna extend and think about spreading those toes at the bottom while you move to eversion, and then all the way back up to dorsiflexion. Good, let's just do one back the other way. So we'll reverse and start eversion, down to plantar flexion, and when you're coming to inversion, think about spreading the toes and coming all the way back up, and relax. So cars technically has 3 different levels. So level 1, body weight, very low intensity. This would be considered your morning routine, where you're able to you're allowed a small amount of compensation. We're really just trying to get your joints moving. You do want to be as strict as possible, but it's okay to compensate just a little bit, because we're really just trying to get some blood and movement into those joints when we're talking about level 1 cars. These are also great for like movement prep before a workout. Level 1 cars are typically done with maximum of 30% of your max effort while you're performing them. So low intensity. So level 2 cars are done with a bit higher irradiation. Think about 50 to 75% maximum. So this is gonna be anytime you're blocking a specific part of your body to avoid any compensation. For example, if I'm doing a hip car in a quad position to block my lumbar so it doesn't move, or if I'm blocking my upper body to perform a shoulder car. So I'm taking away an area that I may be compensating quite a bit, and I'm looking for a truer, more strict car. What compensation is cheating. So if you want to move your shoulder, you only want to move your shoulder. If anything else starts to move, then that's a no-go. So these cars are typically used after a pails and rails set, which we did talk about in the first video, but we'll further explain that in a later video. But yeah, so these are typically done after a pails and rails set to further enhance your mind-body connection to the new space that you just opened up in that range of motion. So Clyde's very proficient in his hip mobility in terms of range of motion and control. So we're gonna have him in a blocked position. So we have him in a quad position right now, even shoulders and hips. I'm gonna put this yoga block on his lumbar to avoid any compensation that may be happening. And it's gonna give him a little feedback to keep the whole time. So the whole time, Clyde, I want your low back to be glued to this. All right, so there should be no space here at any time during the whole motion, okay? So to start, you're gonna take a big breath. We're working about 50 to 60% here. So the fist, knees, feet are all evenly driving very hard into the ground. All right, so get that good tension and let's start to come to hip flexion. Good, nice and glued here. You're maxing it out to abduction. Nice and slow here. Everything is driving really, really hard in the ground right now. His core should be really fired up as he's moving through his biggest, safest range here. Good, once you get to the back, you can relax for a second if you need to, but let's start back at the hip extension. Keep that tension driving. Everything, feet, fist, good. You see the yoga block is not moving here. All the way back to your starting position. Great. And then lastly are level 3 cars. So this is gonna be any time that you're adding some type of external load to your car. Think like holding a dumbbell while you're performing a shoulder car or attaching an ankle weight to your hip. These are only to be done when you have full control and range of motion of your car and you want to strengthen that range of motion. So these are done mostly at max effort, probably between 90 to 100%. You want very little, if any, compensation on these. So they're very hard, but once you do get a good range of motion, they're very effective in strengthening your rotational path. People who you would typically see using level 3 cars are high performing athletes, people who have trained internally for quite a long time and are proficient in their internal environment. And then also those individuals who have shown huge strides from level 1 and 2 cars in order to test them in that loaded environment.
Okay, so today I'm gonna have Solo perform a level 3 car. Now, the reason we're doing a level 3 car today is because he's very proficient in cars level 1, movement base. He's proficient in cars level 2, articular focus, right? So he can actually move his shoulders with no compensation and he can work through his ranges of motion. So the level 3 is gonna be focused on more capacity focus. So here we're gonna be reaching his highest level of irradiation through the nervous system and also building strength while also moving through his range of motion to increase his mobility, right? So think of this more of a strength exercise now, not just mobility focus. So with this Indian club we have here in his right hand, we have the palm facing forward, right? So I'm gonna give Solo this block for more active like cueing. We'll place it right here between his thighs. So he's gonna generate tension, not only pressing his feet through the floor, but also squeezing his block here, right? Then we're gonna also brace the core. So he's gonna reach the safest level of irradiation that his body can handle. And we're gonna take his right shoulder while holding the Indian club and go through a level 3 car, which is capacity focused to help build strength through rotation. Okay, Solo, so big breath in, squeeze that block, squeeze your fist, highest level of irradiation that's safest for you. Ready, and go. As you go through adduction, through flexion, squeeze, squeeze, reach that end point. Then you're gonna start to rotate. This block shouldn't move, shouldn't budge. Keep squeezing the block, keep squeezing. More, stay in control. Go down your pathway. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Bring that arm to the side, palm facing away from the body. Big breath in, reset, drive the feet to the floor, squeeze the block, squeeze the block. Reach back into extension, start to rotate once you can't move anymore through extension. Squeeze the fist, keep going. I shouldn't be able to move this block, keep squeezing, more. Save its maximum effort. Keep going, don't just drop. Slowly come back to that start position. And that's the level 3 car, capacity focus.
Thank y'all for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like. It'd be greatly appreciated. and also subscribe to the channel for more content like this.